Happy 4th of July, everyone. It's the Right Rican, and today's my Independence Day episode. And when looking for a shirt, I just realized I don't have any shirts with flags on it, which is crazy. Um, I have a bunch of shirts for my son, but I don't have one for myself. So I'm gonna fix that this week. This week I'll go to like Old Navy usually has a lot of nice shirts with the flag on it, so I'll go. Probably go there Tuesday or something. But so I wore this my come and take it funny Dr. Seuss shirt instead. But so yeah, I just really I want to talk a little bit about maybe I'm going to read from the Declaration of Independence. So kind of rebut that 1619 nonsense because I learned something that I didn't learn in a history book because they, just as they complain about um, stuff being, not put in history books. This wasn't in a history book that I read, and I had to. Um, well, this is the before I read the Declaration of Independence. I'm gonna click on here. I'm on Wikipedia just so you could see that I'm not reading it from some biased source. Well, not that Wikipedia isn't, but here it goes: slavery and the Declaration, and it goes here. There was the apparent contradiction between all men created equal and the existence of slavery in the United States attracted comment when the Declaration was first published. Many of the founders understood the incompatibility of the statement of natural equality with the institution of slavery, but continued to enjoy the rights of man. Jefferson had included a paragraph in his initial rough draft of the Declaration of Independence rigorously condemning the evil of the slave trade and condemning King George III for forcing it onto the colonies. But this was deleted from the final version. Now, people go, oh, that's proof. No, it's not proof. Jefferson wrote it and himself was a slave owner. So, he had to have some self hatred for what he was doing. But at the same time, they needed the full force of the 13 colonies. Um, so they needed to make a compromise. I think it was with the Carolinas and Georgia that they had to compromise. So you when you're making allies, sometimes you have to give, and that's where they gave, and it cost us 100 years later. It cost us in the Civil War 100 years later. So to say that um, the America was founded on slavery when there was plenty of people who didn't want it furthered in the states, but it just it just was added at the end. So just want to read and have people understand that how, as much as people hate to um, people right now are just uh, hate America crowd, how America's horrible and we're the worst. And you got to understand when this was created, um, I'm starting my, sorry, I forgot to put my timer. Just, I try to, like I always say, I always try to put somewhere between 10 to 20 minutes on I try not to go too long. I know people don't lose focus after a while, so I just try to keep it short. But here it goes. I mean, when this was document was created, it was it was revolutionary. Not to just throw that word around. It was a culmination of uh, Enlightenment writings, um, stuff that the crown did to the colonies, and something like the whole thing of they were trying to avoid a conflict for like 15 years before the Declaration of Independence was written. So this is stuff that, they sifted through. Same thing when they did, because as one person was writing, um, the as Thomas Jefferson was focusing on and the others were focused on the Declaration of Independence. Some other, forget the name of the guy, Robert Lee's, like father or something, grandfather, was focusing on the Articles of Confederation, which was the precursor to the Constitution. But these were let's just read this real quick. It goes, I mean, for who hasn't read it, but like I said, this is July 4th, so we're gonna celebrate it by reading it. And it goes here: when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. And there's, one is saying, okay, you know, we declaring ourselves separate, and this is why. Is the I'm not going to go into the incidences, but here is, here says preamble outlines a general philosophy of government that justifies revolution when government harms natural rights, which is the irony because a lot of that stuff is going on today too. We hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to then shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be charged for light and transient causes, and according to all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to overthrow such government and to provide new guards for their future security. This, you got to understand, everything was pretty much a monarchy or some sort of totalitarian governments. There was no, you have feudalism to a certain extent still going on at this time. So this was a radical idea. Freedom was a radical idea. It's still a radical idea because um, if you look at what's going on now with the socialism movement, socialism and communism and Marxism, it's not about freedom. It's about control. And sometimes people prefer the comforts of control and totalitarianism versus scary the scariness of freedom, because freedom's scary, and that means you have to take care of yourself. You're responsible for yourself. um, you're sovereign. But if you have a king or a sovereign over you, it's their job to take care of you, and in turn you're supposed to take care of them. But really, they're the ones that's supposed to protect you from uh, other enemies, other people, and so forth. But so you got to remember that when these people with the 1619 project, they're trying to rewrite history. They want to tell you that America was founded on slavery, when it's nothing could be further from the truth. If you want to go, you got to look at it. One, America was not founded on slavery. 1619, we were in a country. We were part of England, and they're the ones that brought slavery to the colonies. Now, yes, is there a contradiction in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution? Yes, but there's always hypocrisy in when it comes to people. There's always going to be some form of hypocrisy. But can the question is, can you rate these hypocrisies? And we've tried our best throughout this country, throughout our founding and till today, to correct past wrongs. We're human. Nobody's perfect. And that's the beauty of this country is you come here. There's no other country that you could go to and go, um, let's say you move to France. You'll always be an American. You can't go to France and just say, oh, well, now I'm French. No, they won't accept you as French. They won't do it. You go to, England, the same thing, with your funny accent, you'll never be British. You'll always be American. America's the is the you could go to Japan, China, you won't be Chinese, you won't be Japanese, you'll still be wherever country you came from. It's only in America that you could come here as an immigrant and become American, become part of the great experiment that American freedom was. I mean, you look at what happened, look at the American Revolution as opposed to the French Revolution, and you see the difference in um, just a radical difference between, um, we just fought the British when with the French Revolution. I mean, they fought each other. It was, it was bloody, and but here we are from different countries here in America, and the unique thing about America is we bring the best of other countries. That's why people come here. That's why people want to come here to start a better life, to chance at a better life. Because at the end of the day, even though new immigrants always have a hard time, but after a while they just become Americans, and that doesn't happen everywhere else. And that's the truth. People who tell you different, just because you people could tell you different, but just because you love another country, you go there, they don't always welcome you. And sometimes it takes time in this country, but at the end of the day, when your accomplishments are weighed when it comes to that, and what you accomplish when you get here. So enjoy your Fourth of July. Remember, it's not just barbecues and fireworks, but it's remembering the founding of the country when we um, blew off the shackles of King George and the British and formed our own country. And now here we are, you know, almost 200, almost 300 years later, um, which I was calculating this. It's like I'd be, if I could make it to 2076, I would be 97 years old. That would be great. I mean, I lived a long life. But we'll see what happens with that. Um, but it would be nice to see that um, if I do live that long, that we're still united as a country, because that's the fear right now. The fear right now is um, that we're headed in two different directions. People who want to stay free versus people who want um, the yoke of government, the yoke of big government, the yoke of communism and socialism, because that's what it is. It's not freedom. It's basically it's they tell you it's about freedom, but it's not. You basically would be enslaved in the hands of government. Because if you look at communism and socialism, throughout. People want to say about how capitalism's so bad because we get these super duper wealthy people and super duper poor people, and it's like, look at China. You don't think they have rich elites? Look at Cuba. They were the Castros were rich while the people were poor. Same thing in Venezuela. It's nothing new that the people in charge enrich themselves. It's there's nothing new with that. The question is, do they actually spread the wealth? And spreading the wealth doesn't necessarily mean that everybody gets a quote unquote equal share, because at the end of the day, we all have a chance to be equal. It doesn't mean that we are. Some people work harder than others. Um, some people study harder. Some people physically labor harder, and some people are take chances more than others. I mean, me and my wife, we've lived you know, in our 15 years of marriage, we've lived in um, three different states. The longest place we lived was 5 years, 6 years. So yeah, sometimes you got to take chances in this life. And in 1776, they took the chance and they said, "We're going to fight the strongest military in the world." And granted, we didn't do it alone; we had a lot of help, but we freed ourselves. And like I said, freedom is scary and freedom's dangerous. And at the end of the day, I'd rather live in dangerous freedom than under totalitarian, communist, socialist, Marxist control. And with that being said, like I said, have a happy 4th of July, everyone. And just remember why we celebrate. I'm the Right Rican. You could follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Parlor, Telegram, and also I post these videos on Rumble and YouTube. All right. Have a good one.